Mayor Weiss,
Here.
Chairman Collins,
Here.
Mr. Anthoven,
Here.
Mr. Massey,
Here.
Vice Mayor DeWitt, excuse. Vice Chairman Diane, Sandu, and Mr. Polito.
Here.
Well, thanks for everybody showing up. We always need your support. So it's open for public comment, and since there are no members of the public here,
I guess I'm the public comment then. It's
Well,
the only agenda.
I think you can comment as a committee member or the public, either one, but
Yeah, you can comment now, you can comment later.
go ahead and comment.
Either way, which way you guys want
Do it now.
to do it now. Okay, let's start with the disclaimer. Disclaimer one, I'm not going to be here advocating this is for the cameras, outsourcing the police department. It may be an outcome of what I'm about to propose. Two, I'm going to disclose my personal bias. I am strongly anti-union. I'm particularly anti-public union, particularly the police, fire, and the SEIU are at the top of my list. So I want to make that clear before I move on. We, for several months, we focused on what to do with excess funds in this committee. We discussed pensions, healthcare costs, side funds, set-asides, etc. And I think we've had great discussions and good results were brought forward to the city council last week, and I hope you feel the same way, because we did spend a lot of time on it. Studies I thought were fabulous, and we did a good job. We also spent a lot of time discussing the last meeting revenue enhancements, i.e. taxes. We never, in all that time that I discussed, in my memory, can remember that we ever talked about expense items, not once. So, the elephant, the 800-pound gorilla, and your crazy aunt that nobody talks about are here in the room. The largest single expense item in the city of Atherton is the police department. It accounts for almost 50% of the budget. We have totally ignored it. We don't talk about it. We pretend we don't see it. We cannot and should not continue to do this. Other cities have looked at and either decided to outsource police services or at least look at the costs of said services. We have done none of that. We do not have any idea of whether that would be beneficial as a rule we should take, not take, we don't know, because we've never looked at it. The sheriff actually has 3 jurisdictions that are aligned with ours. Why don't we at least look at him? Redwood City, their cost, they save San Carlos millions of dollars in outsourcing services without one sworn officer losing his job. I firmly believe we have to do this. Whether there's a savings or not, once again, the point is not that there is or isn't. The point is we don't know. We've never looked at it. Okay? This is really just unbelievable to me that we could do this. I feel that everybody at this table, from private experience or personal, has a fiduciary duty to the city, the citizens of this town. And I include myself in that.
3 minutes are up.
He's speaking as a member, you go ahead.
I just comment on that, Jim. Some years ago, early in my time on the committee, we did have a presentation from someone from San Carlos who did the outsourcing thing. And he did a forthright, balanced presentation, which seemed reasonable. I think that attracted a lot of negative feelings on the part of the representatives of the police union. And so I think people were, and also some members of the community felt strongly they didn't want to outsource police. But I'd just like to throw into the pot the idea of outsourcing some pieces like a call center. You know, a call center, we can look at, could we outsource without considering the whole big thing, but just some pieces. So what do? We,
Well, let's let him finish first.
okay.
Again, thank you, I'm not, again, I initially said, my issue is not to do it or not do it. My issue is, we haven't looked at it. And we owe the citizens of this town a fiduciary responsibility, and I include myself in that, to at least look at it. If we find out our costs, let's say the sheriff's department could save us $2 million, okay? We still don't have to outsource this, but we need, at least we'll look and say, we can have a plan, we need to look at our own cost structure, what are we doing wrong? Or what can we improve on? Maybe it's contracting out dispatch. But again, I feel that we've been derelict on our duties. The town could possibly be sued, have a grand jury investigation, I don't know. But again, I feel strongly like this. We have not looked at the largest single expense item in this town from a reasonable standpoint. We've done a great job on all the other stuff. And I don't mean to get emotional about this, but I just feel that we need to.
Well, Jim, we are going to review the budget, which will be coming up, when will that become, next meeting?
In May.
In May. So it would be appropriate if we look at all expense items at that point.
Well,
if you're
it's
still
fine,
on
like I
committee, you
said,
bring
this is
it up.
my last meeting, I just want to get this out there. Now, having created a problem throwing a hand grenade on a table, I used to hate when people did this to me and did not offer a solution. So I'm going to at least offer a solution. And what I think we should do is maybe what you're alluding to is that either this committee or the city council should charter somebody to start to look at this expense item. Now, let's just treat it as an expense item, just not say it's the police department. So 50% of the town's budget expense item that needs to be looked at. Now, having said that, if you need somebody to facilitate, I have some affinity with Sheriff Monks, and fight under Sheriff Bolanos because I was the Rich Gordon appointee to the jail task force committee. I was also president of the Service League of San Mateo County for some period of time, which worked with inmates and their families. So if you would like me to make an outreach, I would do that. And that's, I appreciate the time.
Are you finished, Jim?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right, go ahead now.
Just searching back in the deep dark recesses of my memory, it did seem to me that at one time we had some outside group do an audit of the police department. And it may have shown that the job could be done with fewer people or different people or something.
I don't recall that. When do you think that was?
It could have potentially been when the police department went from 34 employees down to 24.
What?
When there was a call.
When they went from 34 to 24.
It could have been done at that point. I'm not sure of that history, but
When was that?
I don't know. When it went down in numbers, you mean?
Yeah.
That was about 4 or 5 years ago.
About 5 years ago, there was some analysis that was done.
Really?
It wasn't to make a determination of outsourcing or not. It was just how much can we afford.
Or how much do we have fish, how much do we
It was based upon.
reduce
And
it?
again, I'm not advocating outsourcing, I'm just saying, let's look at it, let's get a reasonable picture. Because some citizen walks up and says, why is it 50% of the budget when San Carlos is doing this, or Hillsville doing that, or they take care of Woodside, what do you guys know? And you go, we've never even looked at it.
Well, I think that you made your comments.
Great, I'm not, thank you.
And I think that the meeting where we discuss the budget, the city manager will have to look at each expense item and give us his recommendations.
Yeah, that's correct, and through the chair, if I could respond to
Sure,
some
go
of that. I absolutely love it when members of the community and committees read the mind of administration and others. As I've expressed publicly, and I've also expressed to the council, and they're well aware, when we do look at this year's budget, the expenditure component of this year's budget, I've advised the council that this community has a fiduciary obligation to evaluate its expenditures at every level, to include the police department, to include whether that means contracting out a portion of the police department, keeping the department as a whole, contracting out the entire department in some way, or keeping the entire department in some way, but at least look at that. Yeah, we could save money. I'm willing to bet dimes and donuts you probably could, but that doesn't mean that's the best political and community decision in terms of the police department. I've said this to the APOA, I've said this to others. So we will have that conversation. We will not, though, be saying in May, when we're going to have the conversation with the city council, let's make a decision today. It'll be a recommendation to the city council that we evaluate it. We have the obligation to evaluate it. Here's some of the issues, here's some of the options. City council, what do you think we should do in terms of a staff recommendation? If we want to look at it, I would suggest that we not have a citizens committee do it, not have a subcommittee of the city council, not have staff do it, that it be some external arm's length consultant that comes in and evaluates the service levels, service level needs, outsourcing ability, and then provide that report back to the community, so that no member of the council, no committee can be accused of having one bias one way or the other, and it's not staff driven. So that's probably gonna be the summation of the city council probably coming up.
Well, George, don't you come forward with a budget though after the
Yes.
first one out of the box?
Yes,
And when is that?
May.
Our meeting's on the 13th of May.
in May, it'll come to the city council as the general fund operational budget, which will be the police department component of it, but it will not be a recommendation at that point that we contract out services or reduce services. It'll be, let's start that conversation.
Well, no, but you will bring forth the budget, your recommendation in May.
Yes,
We'll have a meeting on the 13th before the council meeting, so you'll bring it to us first.
well, this,
It just depends on how, on our schedule, but at the next finance committee meeting, that, the budget will be part of the discussion. As far as if the whole thing comes to the finance committee, that we give to the council, we could do a joint budget
the
workshop.
city council gets it on May 21st.
Mayor, what's your pleasure?
Before us on the 21st.
Say it.
I said it's just before us on the 21st until the 21st.
The 21st of
May.
May.
The finance committee doesn't have the directive to go into a line item discussion of the budget. That's not the directive of the.
That's not in our charter,
No,
that the finance committee review the budget before the.
not at the line item level, no. At the,
The line item.
yeah, in other words, you're not looking at paper clips, pens, and staffing expenditures.
Would
That's
this-
not your
Would
charge.
this possibly be an action item for hourly issues? To give an analysis?
Of the police services, they don't have the expertise to do that.
Just wondering, maybe somebody in the group perhaps would have that.
Now, there are specifically consultants out there, as you probably know from personnel that's sourcing, that have the expertise to look at policing type services, dispense centers.
We'd like to look at who did it before,
Yes, yeah.
and it has a history with it.
All right, well, I think in the interest of moving ahead here, that we will leave it that we will certainly have the budget before us, whether we review it on a line item basis or not. And you'll be here, Mayor, so I assume that we can have a discussion of anything on that item without going through every one, without being out of line. So that's what I suggest. And whether you're a member or not, you certainly are welcome as a member of the public.
Yeah, and then what George said makes sense. That's all I ask is that we look at it. And that's all I said all day long. I didn't say I wanted out, but I said we look at it. We're gonna look at it.
Well, and he wanted to discuss fees and other things, and I suggested he do that at our meeting, and he did last week when we met jointly. But I didn't think to bring this one up last week was appropriate.
Well, when it pressed there, I didn't think it was appropriate either. I would have not have done it today.
Well, the press is always in the way.
Outsourcing is a polarizing issue in this community.
I know, again, I think-
But it needs to be thought.
Let me repeat again, I'm not advocating outsourcing.
Right.
All I'm saying is there's a 50% of our budget that we don't look at. We need to look at it, and we're gonna do it, that's great.
All right, shall we move on then? The minutes for the November 12th meeting,
Oh, before we go forward, I'm just, we're gonna switch item 6 and 5. Item 6 is gonna go where 5 is at, and item 5 is switching with item 6.
all right, well,
So,
let's go ahead with 3 and 4 first. Has everybody had a chance to look at the November 12th and they're happy with it?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, how about the January 14th? Is that before us or is that a draft?
the draft,
So what do you want us to do, just review it?
yeah. It'll come back in the next, in May meeting as final.
Or do you have any comments? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead with item 6 in place of 5.
Okay. Good afternoon. The city has asked the HDL companies to perform a property tax analysis for our fiscal year 13.
Why don't you define who they are for the record?
HDL Companies is a company that provides property tax analysis on behalf of municipal governments. They take information from counties regarding the property tax roll, the assessments, and they do an analysis regarding the whole property tax issues, property tax rolls, whether the assessed value changes from year to year. So HDL is our consultant that handles property tax analysis. And so we brought Ms. Policone from HDL to present an overview for the fiscal year 13-14 fiscal year, and just don't want to steal her thunder or go into detail, but the fiscal 11-12 assessed value for the town is $6.3 billion. For the 13-14, the assessed value was $7.5 billion. So the big change is about a 9.02 percentage change from last year to this year.
Wow.
Property tax increase, positive. And so 11-12 was $6.3 billion. 12-13 was $6.9 billion. So that was a 9.03 percentage change. So from last year, the 12-13 to this 13-14 fiscal year, the change is 9.02%. Assessed value increase. So that's a net $626 million next taxable value increase for the town. So we had a 9% increase. The county as a whole was about 5.9%. So of the all properties, counties in assessed value, we were second behind Foster City, which is at 9.2%. So without further ado, I'd like to present Ms. Policone so she can do an overview. You have the packet, includes the HDL analysis, it goes by properties, assessed value, the changes in property values for the 13-14 fiscal year.
Thank you, Robert. And before I get into the book, and I don't think I'm going to go through the book, I put some of the most important reports on the overhead. I think it's easier for me to go through those with you rather than try to focus you on something in your own hands. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
That's the good mix. And before I get into this, yes, Atherton has had 2 blowout years. And we've had unprecedented growth in terms of median sale prices throughout the state. You're not unfamiliar with what's happening here. We are starting to see some slowdown in those prices. And I have some reports that look at median sale price, and I need to say that a median sale price report is as much an indicator of what is coming to market now or during the year than anything else. In some of the other communities where we had a lackluster 2012 when those properties had been taken back by the banks and those were the properties that were coming to sale, the property sale prices were very low in 2012 and they skyrocketed in 2013. So I'm seeing huge differences. In your community, you could have a really good year where a lot of the higher properties are coming up for sale, and the next year, not so high properties are coming up for sale, so the median price goes down. That doesn't mean that you're not still seeing year-over-year increase in those properties that are selling, just that the price points are different. And you have a little bit different dynamic. You and a lot of the other communities on the peninsula here have a little bit different dynamic than what we see in the southern part of the peninsula or on the east side. So I have to sort of caution you as we look forward, because in this current year, as you're going to see, 43% of the properties that were reduced by the assessor per property have already been reinstated here. In this county, more than half of the cities have a current median sale price that's higher than it was in the bottom. Same thing is true half of the cities in Santa Clara County. You get across the bay, not so much, maybe 2 out of all the cities in Alameda County. One of those is Piedmont. They have that dynamic going on.
And
So-
how much do they increase, or is there a fixed percentage?
Yeah, there's a fixed percentage, and in your case, I'd rather not talk off the top of my head, just show you just a second. But it's, in most of the communities and states, it's more than 20%. And I was sort of worried through September 2013, because every month when everything was being released, the prices were up, the prices are up. And I kept on thinking, this is what took us down the horrible path before the bubble burst. And when we hit October, things stabilized. And that's sort of the good news. Yes, they're still up 20%, but they're not at 40%. In some cities there are, but general terms, that's not the case. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about what we're seeing on the ground, and then talk about trending, and I do have some information about budgeting next year that I want to go over with you, because you're still going to see growth. You're probably not going to see this 9% growth that you're seeing now, but you're certainly not where we were that 1 year that we went down. Those days are behind us. This is one of the first reports that's in the book that you have, and just to point out, what this report does is it looks at the land, the improvements, the personal property, and the fixture values between tax years. And then at the very bottom of the report, I'm not sure why it won't show up there. Yeah. At the very bottom of the report, I'm looking at gross assessed value. Now that includes every piece of property in town. Some of the properties within the town do not have tax bills. Properties that the city owns, that the schools own, but they have value. They're just not generating any revenue for you. So that pot of properties grew 7.7, or are currently at $7.799 billion. But if I look at the properties that receive tax bills, they're that 7.575 that Robert mentioned. They went up 9% between tax years. The entire pool of values went up 9.3%. The county of San Mateo went up 5.9%. So not quite double the county, but you're certainly doing better than most of the cities are in the county. And you've had nice positive growth now for the past 5 years. To look at where that value growth came from, if we look at your residential properties, and the numbers that are in the blue italicized are the number of parcels. So you actually have 2 more parcels in town that have a residential use than you had in the prior year. The values of all of your residential uses are up $564.6 million, 8.4%. That's the drier year. You had some vacant properties that grew in value. You'll see you had 75 vacant last year. You've got 72 vacant this year. The increase is almost $59 million. As a reminder, when the economy slows down and somebody might have a piece of vacant property, but they don't have a bank loan to develop that property, it's worth less than it is when the plans are there and the plans are funded and they're ready to go. So what the assessor usually did during the 2008 to 2012 period is if a piece of property was vacant and it was vacant without anything planned for it, he reduced the values for Prop 8. Once the owner of that property got their bank loan and was ready to start building on it, the values went up. So those 2 items are the largest increased items, and they account for the 9.0% that you saw for the most part between tax years.
Could I ask just a quick
Oh,
question?
sure.
Since it's significant, but the book I have has slightly different numbers.
Oh, yeah. It's insignificant because we are updating these all the time. Sometimes something happened during the year, later in the year. Just as a reminder, the tax roll is released to us in July.
No, this is from the book
Right.
Robert gave me
Right,
last week.
but I
Yes.
printed these after that. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, I printed these after that. That's why I'm sort of not taking you down the path in the book, because these are a little bit more current numbers. I talked about Prop 8. If you were to go and look at one of our books from the prior years, this report was just a block of numbers with nothing else. We were just kind of tracking what was happening. Once we hit 2012, the assessors in earnest started recapturing value. So I've highlighted the 2012 line just to illustrate here. In 2012, there was still 204 pieces of property that sold in or after the bubble in 2008, did not sell again, but the assessor had reduced the values. Unless the property is demolished or burned down, the only way that the property would be reduced in value is if the assessor touched it in some way. And Prop 8 is the way that he's touching these. So those 204 pieces of property in 2012 had a total value of $975+ billion. By law, the assessor, over time, when the economy rebounds, can increase that property back to where it would have been at the time it was reduced, plus the 2% CPI for Prop 13 in the intervening years. So if it was reduced in 2008, The assessor continues to track what happened, what should have happened to that property in 2009, 10, 11, and 12. And then when he starts recapturing the value in 2013, there's a maximum I can go back to. That maximum of these 204 properties in your case is a little more than $1.2 billion. So what we're looking at is that 229,221,495, the potential recapture number in that buff-colored middle column. If the economy turns around, boom, in a heartbeat, and everything is back to where it was before the recession, that's the new value that's going to get added to the roll. So as we looked in 2013 at what had happened, we saw that 132, we're in the green area now, 132 of those 204 pieces of property actually had values increased for 2013. That's the beginning of recapturing. The amount that they increased was that $97 million, roughly 43% of the $229 million. So already the assessor is working in earnest because of what he sees on those individual homes in the unique neighborhoods here, and has started to increase the value. In the far right column, you see that number 15. In 2012, 15 properties that have been reduced per Prop 8 sold. When they sell, they reset per Prop 13, and they're out of the recapturing pool forever. And the amount of those properties is a little more than $7.6 million. Small numbers overall. So what we started to do is we're looking at where the median prices are today. We are looking at a potential recapturing here next year of 91% of that leftover pool. And that's what I need to talk with you about in just a minute. Any questions about Prop 8? Because it's something that, yes.
Could you kindly just remind me what it is?
Yeah. What happened after Prop 13 was adopted, someone raised their hand in the room and said, okay, you've got this automatic inflator, 2%. What if an earthquake hits and my house gets demolished? It's not 2%. Oh, no, it's not. So, new initiative, the first Prop 8, is put toward the voters, and that says if there was an economic downturn, market value, if there is a calamity, flood, fire, earthquake, that the assessor has to reduce the values to the then market value and look at them every single year. They don't get the 2% CPI. They're looked at individually every year, and when the economy rebounds as it is, they will start to do that increase in value. When I met with the majority of my clients last year, I said, this is going to be a long slog. It's going to take us 5 to 7 years to recapture, and boy, was I wrong. I had no way of thinking that we would see 20% increase in sale prices in 1 year. That was almost unheard of. So in most of the communities in California, within the next 3 years, they will recapture everything that their potential is, and we'll be back. However, there is on average a recession, economic downturn in the nation in California every 7 to 8 years. So by the time we get back there, my friends, something different is going to happen to take us down the same path again. It's the third one I've been through in 23 years. And looking at your median sale prices, this is really interesting. You hit your peak price in 2008, where the median price, meaning half or higher, half or lower, of a home that was selling was $3,975,000. That was your peak. Today, we're at $3,900,500. So we are just almost to that peak back here. In 2011 and 2012, we saw increases in the median sale price of 12.7% and 8.45%, roughly a little more than 21% overall in 2 years alone. Your average price has continued to go up. It's higher than it has ever been. Good news. And you can see as I've drawn the lines back in time, the current average is higher. The median is, you get that point somewhere around 2008, and that's the only time you were higher than where you are currently. This is the report you don't want to be at the top of. This report looks at every city in San Mateo County, shows you the year that each city saw their peak price, shows you what today's peak price is, how far off peak you are, and again, how far back in history you have to go to find that price. As you can see, almost half of the cities have already seen a price here where we're exceeding the price that they saw, or at least meeting it or exceeding it. If we're meeting it, that means that today's price is the high price at 2013 level. And I am guessing that by the time we hit next year, certainly Atherton and Port